Right. Good evening, class. And can you see me? I just share my view cam with you. Could you confirm and just type in if you could hear me and see me? Thank you very much. Right. We'll this is our module 5, Hong Kong Basic Law, and welcome everybody. We're due to our start time should be 7 p.m. But this is our first lessons, and especially uh, for some of you, this might be the first experience with having taken a lesson online. We are using the Adobe Connect system, which is a in-house system developed by Hong Kong U Space. So this is not the more perhaps the more commonly used medium, but one which is tailor-made for us. You probably could see that I'm actually uploading a PPT file, which is taking a bit of time, and I would like to see who are here already. Let me see if it was. Has everybody send a message of greeting? It would be good if because I'm not going to do any roll calls, so please register your presence by typing into this chat box that we have. Then I will know who is here. Could somebody confirm for me that you could actually see on your screen Introduction to the Hong Kong Basic Law, Chapter 1 course menu? Do I have your confirmation that you can actually see what I've now put out as a sharing, as a PPT file for sharing. Can I ask one of you to speak up and just to confirm? So I have Alice Choi. I'm going to enable your microphone. Could you speak up? Just tell me whether you could see, or tell me what you see on your screen. Alice, I've turned your microphone on. You can actually speak. Hi, hello, Alice. Maybe I could try another student, Michael Check. Michael, I'm going to enable your microphone. Can you hear me? And please speak to your microphone.
Phone or what?
Michael?
Yes, I'm speaking. Speaking right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Could you tell me what do you see on your screen?
Tap to view. I see. Oh, now I can see the menu, the course menu. There's
Right.
the introduction to the Hong
You
Kong
see
Basic
the
Law.
image of Introduction to the Hong Kong Basic Law.
Yeah, and your handsome face.
My handsome face. Thank you. Thank you. Right. So can I assume that everybody else is seeing the same and hearing the same?
So I will mute the microphone right now.
Yes.
Right. Let me
Yep.
know.
I'll disable your microphone. Right. Now, can I just check another function, which is for you to raise your hand before you intend to speak. And the system is such that when you press your raising hand button, then I should be able to see it and then enable your microphone so that we can hear what you wish to say. Now, could I have Hilda? Hilda, would you please try raise your hand? Yes. Let me see if I. Right, Hilda, can you now speak? Hilda, I have enabled. I saw your raising hand icon, and I had enabled your microphone. I can also see that you are typing. Are you all right there? Can I hear something from? I mean, can you speak up? Speak to your microphone. Michael, I saw that you've got a green circle with a tick there. What was it that did you intend to send a message, Michael? Agree. Okay, that was agreed. Oh, you mean I have to press agreed? Oh, thank you. Right, Hilda. Um, Agreed. Hilda? I'm sorry, it's taking a bit of time because I want to make sure that everybody um, is able to hear and see and in short, to communicate with me and with the rest of the class. It would be nice if you could actually turn on your uh, webcam so that I could see you as well. Hilda, I'm not hearing from you at all. Let me try another classmate. Do I have Simon there? Simon, can you hear me? Simon Zhang Can Fei. I'm just doing this randomly. Simon, can you hear me? Oh, I see. Yes, Simon, can you speak to the mic? Speak to the microphone then. Simon.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, and you are Simon. Are you Simon?
Simon. Yes.
Good. So this is what you do, right? So please just remember, because I do not know how each of your devices operate, but you are supposed to be able to communicate, uh, uh, or we can communicate during class through the system. I saw some of you who had said, that you either your microphone doesn't work or something. Please check this before this class starts. You are here to attend a class, and we are doing this as if we are having a face-to-face class. Of course, we have to adapt ourselves. But I really wanted, because the course itself is being designed so that to for us to have some interaction, as if when we are having our face-to-face classes, so that as your teacher, I will be asking questions of you uh, uh, for for making sure to get the necessary feedback from you, and of course to making sure that you are there and you are not dozing off. So of course at the same time you're most welcome to raise any questions uh, during the course of the class. Right, I saw that we've got 51 participants registered their presence, and I saw that actually I just admitted two others. It's now 7:15, and we should have a form. We should start formally. I'm your teacher, Dr. Jimmy Ma, and I teach you the subject of Introduction to the Hong Kong Basic Law. You should by now have received in Seoul 2.0 two PPT files which will be used by me in the course of the next 10 lessons. These PPT files will be one of the key sources of information for you to learn this subject. The other key source of information is your menu, and this one I think you my cover of course is the of the older version, because and this is something that you should be getting, or you should have, you either you will get the soft copy or eventually a hard copy. So there should also be a third document which is called reference material, reference manual, certificate in legal studies for the subject of Hong Kong basic law. So this is another one. We will be making reference to both the manual and the reference material in the course of our lessons, and you will be asked to also participate in discussions and also the activities that we have provided in the manual. I saw that we have a few newcomers coming, and I'm meeting them. We have, oh, what happened? Yes, we have now, I think, 54. Good. So can somebody confirm that you have actually received these documents, the PPT files, the manual, and the reference material, reference manual? Can I ask somebody? Patrick Wong, are you there? Can you tell us whether you have received this? All on SO platform. Right. Patrick, can you say something to confirm? Patrick Wong Fu Kang.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes, I can, indeed.
Oh,
I saw that Michael has typed on the chat on the chat pod that all on Soul platform. Have you been to Soul platform?
yes.
SOUL. Yes. So did you find those documents?
Yes, I download the note, but the menu we still haven't received yet.
I see. You haven't received the menu yet. Michael says for him he received all. Maybe I'll let the registry know that not everybody has got it, has got everything then.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick. Right. That seems quite good. Except that you seem to be very shy this class. No, I'm not seeing any faces at all. Okay, right, all right. So your teacher, I am, and basic law is a subject that I have been teaching for many years, and it is a very important subject. It's a very compared to other law subjects that you are required to study in this program. This subject not only of is paramount importance, but also the approach and the if you like the content is very unique. and of course the importance. And in Hong Kong, in real life, I think this subject, compared with others, should be the most relevant. Now, the basic law itself is not big at all. Oh, where have I put my basic law? Yep, right. The basic law itself is just but a pretty thin book, if you like. It's got one preamble, 160 articles, 3 annexes, and that's it. So if you compare to studying contract law, you've got a thick textbook, and tort law and so on. Each will, that and many cases. But of course, for the basic law, though, it is just this one. Now, thank you, Liao Meifong. Welcome. So we haven't really started. So you are late in coming in, but you haven't really missed a lot. Well, but mind you, that this is the basic law. We are studying this basic law as a subject, and when I said it's a thin book, but of course our objective is not only to go through the book, but we have to study what it is, how did it come about that we're having it, and when we look at the question what is it, we will be looking at the constitutional history of Hong Kong, how it now, as you can see in the basic law that is provided, that it is an inalienable part of People's Republic of China, and yet how it had come about that there was UK and People's Republic of China, who the two countries started negotiation on the future of Hong Kong, and eventually they enter into a joint. They promulgate a joint declaration of the two countries on the future of Hong Kong. And on the part of Mainland China, PRC, following the conclusion of the joint declaration, the People's Republic of China started drafting the basic law, which was then promulgated in 1990, in April 1990. This very important document for Hong Kong only start having legal effect in Hong Kong 1st of July 1997. And for UK, as today or this month, you heard news about UK Parliament expressing certain views on Hong Kong, and also examining reports and half-yearly reports on Hong Kong. Now, so one thing that one message that I should like you to remember is, for us as students of the basic law, we are not only studying the provisions of the basic law, what it says in the basic law, but we really have to look at its history, the background to it, and also it is a very a subject full of life, full of activities, and when you turn over a newspaper or nowadays especially, you can see government is spending a lot, making a lot of efforts in promoting the Hong Kong Basic Law. And at the same time, you can see the Hong Kong SAR government is also promoting or imparting this concept of the country, the People's Republic of China, and also bring in the Constitution of People's Republic of China to the Hong Kong people. All these we will cover in our lessons, but of course time is very limited for us, so our course will only be able to cover what we believe are the main areas with certain focuses, so that after this course you will be able to tell yourself that, well, first of all, I studied the program and I know what it is, the basic law, and you will become more familiar and indeed understand the legal relationship between Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and the People's Republic of China post 1997. When I say post 1997, that means from 1st of July 1997, under the one country, two systems. You will also be able to explain the relationship between Hong Kong's basic law and the Hong Kong and mainland legal systems. Now, this is again something which requires some explanation, and I'll try my best to explain to you what these concepts are and how it works in practice. And then we will focus on the political system established by the Basic Law for Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. One of the talks of the town last month or last 2 months was whether there is a system of separation of power in Hong Kong, 三權分立, or if not, then what sort of system, what sort of political system does Hong Kong Special Administrative Region have under the Basic Law? We will come to it in more focus later when we when we examine the organs of power in Hong Kong. These are the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary branch. Of course, on top of that, or in addition to that, put in more neutral terms, there is also the chief executive. So among these, how are they positioned in terms of the powers they are given under the Hong Kong Basic Law? And we will then examine and consider whether it's right or wrong, or that the system should be described as a system of separation of power, or by any other descriptions. It will be interesting, right? And then, as the very important subject under the Basic Law is the protection, the framework established by the Basic Law in protecting fundamental rights in Hong Kong as Special Administrative Region. It's a big subject, a subject of great concern to many Hong Kong people pre-97. Questions have been, a lot of concerns raised was with the sort of human rights track record of People's Republic of China, how that would impact on Hong Kong citizens when the UK ceased to be Hong Kong's sovereign, and with Hong Kong returning to her motherland. That was a big subject, big political subject pre-1997, and we will see how provisions, specific provisions have been made in the Basic Law for ensuring the same level of protection is accorded to Hong Kong people post 1997, and also how the judiciary, how the courts have developed legal principles for the protection of fundamental rights through various legal means and also through decided cases. So that is a quick summary of what you should expect to learn from this course and how the course is designed for that purpose. So we are not going to look at each and every aspect of the Basic Law, but at the conclusion of the course, I think you will be much more confident when you go to the Basic Law and be able to apply things that you have learned from this course to read various provisions of the Basic Law more meaningfully. Right. So any questions from any of you? If you've got any questions, just press the raise hand button, and then good. Right. Let me my second slide. Oh, but before I move on, you will see that on the bottom of the slides there is a description Danny Gittings with adaptations by Jimmy Ma. Well, Danny Gittings was the founder of this course, and he has written this book, Introduction to the Hong Kong Basic Law, and he had been teaching this course for many years, and therefore and then this set of PPT was developed by him. And when I took over the teaching, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I put in I adapted this. I put in some adaptations. Well, a lot of which is actually necessary because of what happened since Mr. Keating stopped teaching this course himself. And of course, the manual that we have was written by him. So Mr. Gittings, who is now still with Hong Kong U Space and one of the top professors here. So back to the content of this slide, you will see we don't call this constitutional law, nor call it public law, but in effect, this would be the Basic Law. Because of the nature of this legal document, it will definitely be covered if there was a subject called constitutional law or basic or public law. And the nature of this law is such that it actually enjoys a higher status than other laws. Then it enjoys a higher status than other laws in Hong Kong. These other laws, we generally call them ordinances, 條例 ordinance, or subsidiary legislation made in accordance with these ordinances, made under delegated authority, empowered by these ordinances. And yet the Basic Law enjoys a status higher than these other laws. It tells you the system of government that we have. When you turn to the Basic Law, Chapter 4, Political Structure, you will see the system of government as provided is with the central authorities at the top, which is the people's, which is the central people's government in Beijing, and then the chief executive of Hong Kong SAR, and then the executive authorities, the legislature, and the judiciary. This is the system of government provided by the Basic Law in Chapter 4. How laws are made, and when you go to Article 73, Article 74, Article 75, you will see in detail how Legislative Council, as the legislature, is empowered, i.e. is given the power to make laws in Hong Kong in accordance with the Basic Law and legal procedures, which include rules of procedure made by the Legislative Council for the purpose of enacting laws. And we also, this law is important because it also tells you how the courts function, and of course how human rights are protected. That's how you will see that there's a special chapter, Chapter 3, which is entitled Fundamental Rights and Duties of the Residents. And in particular, there is one article, Article 39, which provided that the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and also the other covenant on economic and on the economic, social, and cultural rights are to apply to Hong Kong and implemented through the laws of Hong Kong. Now, these particular provision, Article 39, is a very special provision. We say it's an entrenchment provision. It actually incorporated the International Covenant on Human Rights, on Civil and Political Rights into Hong Kong through laws, through the laws. This is quite similar to what the British government did before 1997 and after 1991, when the lattice patent was amended to give the Hong Kong Bill of Rights Ordinance a special status in order to provide explicitly how fundamental rights are being protected in Hong Kong. It was considered a very sensitive move at that time because it was 1991, shortly after the June 4th June 4th event in 1989. I mentioned this briefly just now. Our intended learning outcomes. What should you expect from this course? Right. We are going to look at the one country, two systems, and how Hong Kong SAR and the and PRC as the country, how this country, where under which you have, of course, the socialist system being practiced on the mainland and Hong Kong SAR. Right, these are the two systems. You will hear me say very often refer that as the mainland system, because conceptually it's difficult. We don't have we have to have the country, which is the People's Republic of China. That's the one country, and conceptually when we say two systems, we are talking about the system being practiced on the mainland, right? And on the mainland is a word which is chosen to, for in this context, to not include Macau, not include Hong Kong, and not include Taiwan. And then the second objective is to for you to learn the relationship between Hong Kong basic law and the Hong Kong and mainland legal systems. So this is the just superficially, one very often will be able to say that, well, in Hong Kong we have a common law legal system, common law. On the mainland is non-common law, is a civil law system, and that is the main distinction. And we won't have much time except to cover this briefly, but I think some of you, if you are working in commerce or in trade and business, you will see there are a lot of interaction at the legal front between Hong Kong entities and mainland China entities. There are a lot of collaboration or cooperation, partnership, joint venture, and so on. And as a result, you can see a lot. There are legal disputes between either Hong Kong merchants and mainland merchants, and very often we'll bring to the forefront the differences between these two systems. Thirdly, we identify, discuss key sections of the basic law with regard to the three organs of power. We can only look at the key sections. We can't look at everyone, although I said there are only 160, but we simply don't have the time to go through all of them. And then the last one was, as I mentioned, we reserve a particular section in our course on studying how fundamental rights are being protected within the framework of the basic law. With the 10 regular classes, our class is a Tuesday, Thursday as regular lessons. There's one lesson, I think it's December 19th, which is a Saturday, that you will be required to attend. Otherwise, other classes will be Tuesday and Thursday. And following this, there will be, after the 10 regular classes, we will have one revision class. At the moment, it's scheduled for April. I think it's April the 1. But it hasn't. It's still subject to confirmation. You will be expected to read the extracts and learning activities in the course manual, and also do some self-learning there by answering those questions posed in the manual. So the revision class, as I said, is sometime in April. We will then be using some past exam papers for revision purpose, and we'll focus on the preparation, and hopefully we'll be able to give you more practical guidance on the preparation. So any questions so far? So when you look at the manual, we've got 8 chapters. These are the headings for the respective chapters. Introduction, I mentioned quite a bit when I when we started this evening. We'll be looking at the birth of Hong Kong Basic Law, some historical aspect, and also from the perspective of learning the legal aspects of it. We'll be looking at some drafting of the Basic Law, and then from the from jurisprudential point of view, we will also be looking at the question of what is the Hong Kong Basic Law, and then high degree of autonomy under one country, two systems will be the subject under Chapter 4. Then we look at system of governments, more focusing on the relationship between executive and the legislature, and we will deal with the judiciary more as an independent chapter, focusing on the role of the courts, including judicial review. Then something quite unique compared to many other legal systems, and that is interpretation authority, interpretation of the Basic Law. The authority lies with the ultimate authority lies with the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. And the amendment of the Basic Law, that's Article 159. We will be looking at that briefly. And then protecting human rights, a big subject, but I think we will be able to cover some of the main points, important points, in the context of judicial review. Assessments, how your performance will be assessed. You will be given, if not already, an essay question to write, and maximum word count is 2,000, and that assignment will account for 25% of the final mark. And for final exam, you will, I think it's 2-hour exam that you will be required to sit, 2 or 2.5, I can't remember exactly now, but you will be answering 3 short questions out of 5, and then 1 long question out of 2, and these will give you a total of 75 over 100. Right, that's the assessment. Any questions here? Okay, thank you. Good. What is the Basic Law, and how is it different? I think when you'll be doing a subject called legal system, and that subject, I think, there will be some overlap, a little bit of overlap between the two. The main overlap will be on the legal effect, or how you should understand Article 8 of the Basic Law, which maintain the pre-existing legal system or pre-existing laws, including ordinances, subsidiary legislation, and so on, and also the Article 18, which define clearly laws made by Hong Kong legislature, of course, applies. And as far as the mainland law, we call national law, is concerned, they do not have effect in Hong Kong SAR, except when it is included in Annex 3 of the Basic Law and either promulgated by the Chief Executive or enacted into local ordinances. That's something we will again really focus. And then I think you probably will also be interested to hear and learn how the PRC law on the safeguarding national security at Hong Kong SAR was enacted into a law that takes effect in Hong Kong. Of course, at the same time, the rest of PRC. And we say here that Basic Law affects every aspect of your life, human rights, elections, anything, marriages, land ownership. And but then when we study the Basic Law, it's the skill required and the content, of course, is quite different from studying any other law subjects. The books I had introduced the two to there's one here. This is the law of the Hong Kong Constitution. The general editor is Honorable. This is Honorary Senior Counsel, Mr. Professor Joannes Chan, and this is one of the few books on the Hong Kong Basic Law, but it's not too. It's the latest edition that I have was 2015, and of course we all know that since then a lot of things have happened, and a lot of cases since then been decided. So we should be looking, and I will be bringing in something, to fill in the gap. So fill in the gap, give you the more up-to-date, or explain to you the up-to-date position of certain legal issues under the Basic Law. And then Mr. Danny Gating's book, Introduction to Hong Kong Basic Law. Again, these books all need some updating. Some of you might ask, so do I have to read these books, or are they only, as they say, useful? I don't have the time, so what do I do? Well, for the purpose of the examination, it should be enough for you to know what is in the manual, and at the same time understand things that are covered in class. Because the manual needs updating, and we know issues relating to the Basic Law may very, very, very well happen in response to certain life issues, and these and therefore you will notice that this law is very different from other laws, that you really have to keep on the lookout for new issues, and sometimes even new theories and new jurisprudence. Right. So that's the what I intend to cover as far as the first chapter of the manual is concerned. The first chapter had also provided you with an extract of an important speech made by the former Chief Justice of the CFA, Court of Final Appeal, Mr. Justice Andrew Lee Kwok Nung, and you will find this extract of his speech reproduced on pages 6, 7, 8 of the menu, and it's something worth your reading, and it is one of the many articles now, many speeches of important people like the Chief Justice or Secretary for Justice when they talked about what the rule of law is, and I think it is important for us to have a clear mind as far as the concept of rule of law in common law legal system. You will find that there is a learning activity, the box for you to fill in certain aspects of the rule of law, and ask you to give the score that you thought a particular aspect of the rule of law should deserve to be given. Okay. So, any questions? Oh, I missed this question. Do you need a cup of coffee? Michael, you're asking. Who are you asking? Okay. Well, I think the same with many of you. Is evening classes are very challenging because we all start, well, at least I start early. Right. All right then. Let's take a short break. Let's come back 15 minutes. All right. Let's come back 15 minutes. We'll take a short break. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Yes. Before I start with chapter 2, I thought I wanted to add something to what I said about references. I made reference to the course manual, the reference material provided by Space, Honolulu Space, the book written by Mr. Danny Gittings, and two others, one by Johannes Chan, the other by Yesh Gai. In addition to all these, I would recommend you to go to some websites which contained a lot of useful reference materials, including authentic documents and also a collection of cases. The first one, the main website, I think, is the Department of Justice website. It has recently revamped itself, and I thought it was one which should be recommended to you. And there is another one which is on the basic law, but go to DOJ website. I shan't take you through that now, but go there, surf, look for basic law, and you will see it contains a lot of very useful official information there. All right. So chapter 2, we call chapter 2 the birth of the Hong Kong basic law. Right, somebody wanted to enter the room. Okay. Well, this is about how it came about. What led to the promulgation of the Hong Kong Basic Law by the National People's Congress. And here we look at the history, and for reading purpose, of course, the first one, most important, is the Joint Declaration. The Joint Declaration. The official name is called Joint Declaration of the Government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the Government of the People's Republic of China on the question of Hong Kong. I'll take you to that joint declaration a bit later. And the other is to take an initial look at all the chapters of the Basic Law. Although we are not going to cover each and every provision of the Basic Law, you should at least flip through it, go through it quickly, and see for yourself what is it like, what is it, right? And the third source, third item for reading is chapter 2 of Mr. Gidding's book. And as far as the joint declaration is concerned, you can actually go to our course menu, and it is reproduced in the menu in the appendix to chapter 2. If you want to look at the real thing, you can go to United Nations Treaty Depository, and you will find it there too. I can take you to it, and I can share screen with you. This one. Oh, I've lost everything. Oh, what have I done? Do you see the screen that I'm sharing with you? Yeah, that's good. It's actually from the UN website, and you will see this is the joint declaration itself. And let me see if you can actually see the. I think you can actually see the signatures. Let me see if this is that one. May not be it. No. Let me see. No, not here. Yeah, there was one version that I saw actually got the signatures appended to the document. Right. Be that as it may, it doesn't really. That's not the most important. So you can see it's there, and it's a very thin document, mind you, very thin, and we'll come back to here later. But it's got a sort of a preamble, and then it only got 12 points. You know, the entire declaration is the key one. The key is there are 12 points that the two countries jointly declare on the future of Hong Kong. We'll go through this later on, and then a full paragraph of 8 full paragraphs, and that's it. Right? But it comes with 3 annexes. And the first annex is elaboration by the Government of People's Republic of China of its basic policy regarding Hong Kong. And then the next one is on the joint liaison group, i.e. As a group of the two governments, comprising the two representatives of two governments, were given a task of ensuring a smooth transition, and given certain tasks, and it's a political body, and is called Joint Liaison Group, and then the third annex deals with the land matters, right? So Annex 2 is called the Joint Liaison, Sino-British Joint Liaison Group, and then Annex 3 is on land leases. Okay, we are going to come back to this later on. And let's go back to the PowerPoints. You can see those. Now, just a matter of history. You go to the menu. When you go to the menu, on pages 10, 11, and 10, 11, and 12, there are 18 points that we call key dates or milestones, which form the background, historical background to the making of the Basic Law. What I did here is to highlight some of the more important ones. First, Treaty of Nanking, which has the effect of succession of Hong Kong Island to Britain. Now, Treaty of Nanking is a very sensitive. Well, it's a treaty that the Chinese government did not recognize because it being an unequal treaty, and therefore under the Vienna Convention on Treaties, this was not recognized by Beijing, by the PRC government. But the fact is, though, the practical effect is, since that date, 1842 and 43, the English common law legal system was introduced into Hong Kong, the part of Hong Kong which was ceded to Britain. And from then on, the Hong Kong common law system started its route here, and then got its own life, basically. You will learn more in your Hong Kong legal system class on the characteristics of the common law and how it had been evolved in Hong Kong, especially with the enactment of the application of the English law ordinance back in 1966. And coming back to the Treaty of Nanking, for those who remember the history that you did at the school, that treaty only had Hong Kong Island ceded to Britain as a colony. And then come the year 1860, with the Convention of Peking, further north of the island, which is the tip of Kowloon, south of Boundary Street, also became part of the colony, ceded. And then 1898 was the year when the Second Convention of Peking was entered into, under which Britain leased the new territories for up to 99 years, and that is why the date of June 30th, 1997, where for all practical purposes, main bulk of Hong Kong, what was Hong Kong then and now, will have to be returned to PRC, being the lessor of the land, and that, of course, that could happen without dispute, because it was a lease. It was a lease. A lease means a rent, if you like. Britain never have sovereignty over new territories, but and so that forms a very important background to the or or incentive for the two governments to start negotiation on the future of Hong Kong, and the Hong Kong could be at that stage, of course, was given the expanded meaning to include Kowloon or New Kowloon and the new territories. So this is what I mentioned about the Vienna Convention. It was Article 52. But of course, at the time when these treaties were entered into, this concept of unequal treaty didn't come in yet, and in those days, so it still became, if you like, a moot point, a debatable point. But with the conclusion of the joint declaration on the future of Hong Kong, these, if you like, when you read the preamble or to the basic law, you will see that that was considered as a way of settling the history, and the preamble says Hong Kong has been part of the territories of China since ancient times. It was occupied by Britain after the Opium War in 1840. On 19th December 1984, the two governments signed the joint declaration and so on, and thus at the end it says, fulfilling the long cherished common aspirations of the Chinese people for the recovery of Hong Kong. And and then they also make reference to the fact that it's taking account of history and realities. The PRC has decided upon China's resumption of the exercise of sovereignty over Hong Kong, it established the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. So that's the background, the main background to China's claim over Hong Kong. Now, again, a little bit of history, where just highlighting the respective positions of the two governments. China, of course, takes a position that Britain never have any legal right over Hong Kong, be it before or after 1997. Britain, of course, insists that no, at least with the treaties, south of Kowloon is a colony. So unless any change of that relationship, it is part of the British Empire for good. It's only about the new territories where accepting that the land lease has got an end day, because the convention was the lease was only for 99 years. So that was an important difference between the two governments. And then, as far as China is concerned, it was taking position of only tolerating the Britain's presence, never accept that Britain has a right. All right, and of course, from China's point of view, at that time, where it was undergoing difficult time herself, and Hong Kong provided a very useful window for China to enter the rest of the world. And there was at one stage during the Cultural Revolution, where a lot of fear then that those in power on the mainland might take advantage of that opportunity to seize Hong Kong. But China, the Cultural Revolution had resulted in chaos in China, and therefore it was impossible to discuss Hong Kong's future then. However, because of this new territories lease, which has an end date to it, so that naturally will bring cause a lot of concerns among people who were then living in Hong Kong, but a Hong Kong that covers the new territories. Now, so what should happen? What should be done? And talking about law, then with leases granted in relation to the those in the new territories, the British government doesn't have an authority to grant land beyond beyond the end date of the lease, which is a matter of law. So something has to be decided. Otherwise, it will be too uncertain for people to make any decision to either invest in Hong Kong, including new territories, or living there. So there was this great concern raised, and also the common desire among people to have the future of Hong Kong clarified, and so as to give people the confidence to stay on in Hong Kong. With Deng Xiaoping, he came back to power after the Cultural Revolution, and provided, and therefore objectively, there was someone that the British government could actually find as a counterpart to start negotiation. But in those days, though, China didn't want to discuss Hong Kong's future. Why? Why was China not wanting to discuss the future with Britain initially? Well, China taking a stern position that the Nanking treaties are not enforceable, so they don't have to worry. They really wanted. It's not a matter for negotiation, but it's a matter of when Chinese government will claim Hong Kong back, and with new territories, of course, they didn't challenge the legality of the lease, and then that, of course, is there's an end date to it, so they can wait, and another 10-15 years, with the return of the new territories back to mainland China, with the size of Hong Kong Island and even including the tip of Kowloon Peninsula, would not be viable, would not be something that can survive or continue surviving as it was. So China was not in a rush. In any event, China at that time was recovering from the Cultural Revolution and it's just about to start its open door policy. So Hong Kong still remain as a useful window for mainland China going to the rest of the world. And furthermore, it was round about that time when the mainland China was also keen to set a policy, an overall plan to reunify Taiwan, And Taiwan is not a socialist system, and we know that it was the nationalist government of New China in those days that they left mainland China, went to Taiwan and established its government and called itself the Republic of China. Now that, of course, is causing a lot of embarrassment to mainland China, and also it's been seen as one of the country's objective is to reunify Taiwan. So it was at around about that time, and it was said that it was from Ye Jianying proposing that there should be this one country, two systems for recovering Taiwan or be unifying Taiwan. That was mentioned and also spoke of at the National People Congress level. Had become a national objective, i.e., reunifying Taiwan. And 1982, when Deng Xiaoping established these very clear principles in the context of Taiwan, and with this concept of one country, two systems. One country, two systems, what does that mean? Well, it should be understood in the context of Article 31 of the Constitution, and which was amended in 1982, which effectively allows a one country, two systems, allows it. And Article 31 says the state may establish special administrative regions when necessary. The systems to be instituted in SARs shall be prescribed by law, enacted by the National People's Congress in the light of specific conditions. So that's Article 31 verbatim. It gives flexibility to the State Council to have a system which is not a socialist system operating within the mainland China or People's Republic of China. That's Article 31. A little bit dramatic here. 1982, where Margaret Thatcher visited China, visited Beijing. She fell down the steps, and that was, considered as reflecting an adverse position of Britain under this topic. But in any event, in 83, when they start negotiation over one country, two systems, and that is concluding with ended in having a joint declaration concluded in 1984. Just again refreshing a little bit, and this also may in a way reflected the wisdom of Deng Xiaoping. And what Deng Xiaoping wanted was a short agreement with a few general principles. So the agreement eventually is called the Joint Declarations, and you can see it's really short. Of a document of this nature, really short. How many provisions? It has only the main provisions. Was it 50? Let me see. Double check. The main provisions, they have 8, right? 8. Only 8, right? And of course the annexes, especially one on the basic law, on the elaboration is much longer. It's much longer. and Deng Xiaoping didn't want details. Or China on mainland, I beg your pardon. UK on the other hand wanted one with detailed agreements, and you can see that a compromise was struck, and the main text only contains 8 paragraphs, and the bulk of it is on the elaboration of the basic policy. Formed the annex, and that annex is a really long one, and I think it was about 8 or 9, just under 10 pages, or around about 10 pages of the text. Okay. And so how many pages are there in the main text? Well, the main text not more than 2 pages, just 2 pages. What is Annex 1 called? Annex 1 is called, there you are, Declaration. Oh, well, not for me. It's not English. Let's turn to something more readable. Oh, yeah, it's this one. That's correct. Oh, come on. Okay. So that's the main text is 2 pages. Why do you think the joint declaration is written this way? Why do you think? Can you think of any reason why? Why do you think the joint declaration is written this way? And I think you can turn to, if you've got a menu, you can turn to your menu. Now, China can interpret on her will. You mean at her will? That probably doesn't have to do. I got nothing. It's not really relevant to the length of it. Well, but you in a way you are right, because without more details, there will be more room for interpretation. This is under the Vienna Convention. Treaties are to be interpreted in accordance with certain principles. The main one being to reflect the intention of the parties, of the state parties to the treaty or convention. I don't know whether you are able to open your menu either electronically or whether you have already got a copy of it printed. But what I really wanted you to do, if not now, is to go through the learning activity on from pages 13 up to page 18. Page 18. There are these questions which I thought is very useful for you to get familiar with the provisions of the basic law, and at the same time will realize the practical relationship between the joint declaration and the basic law All right. Do you understand what I'm asking you to do? And then so that when we come back next time, Thursday, I can ask you questions about that. For example, if you look at question, say, just question 2, which is on the manual, page 14 of the manual, it says, identify at least 3 articles in the Hong Kong Basic Law that reflect the above basic policy. And that basic policy is that Hong Kong SAR will be directly under the authority of CPG of PRC. The Hong Kong SAR will enjoy a high degree of autonomy, except in foreign and defense affairs, which are responsibilities of the CPG. All right. So the question is asking you to identify 3 articles which reflect the above basic policy. Okay. And so I shall leave you to deal with those. Sure. All right. Is that clear? Do you want to ask any questions? And then come next Thursday, I will ask you individually to give us your answers to these questions. And these questions aren't that many, but only 12. The basic policies. What are these basic policies? They are set out in paragraph 3 of the Joint Declaration, and these policies are the core of the Joint Declaration. And basic promise is one country, 2 systems, and to be contained in the basic law, which will remain unchanged for 50 years. And these are, remember, elaborations of the basic policies agreed between the 2 governments. And the elaboration is not a joint declaration of elaboration, but only a PRC elaboration. Okay, so I think we run through the key points, the key dates very quickly, and just as a recap, and also from a legal point of view, whatever is promised or, if you like, elaborated in the Joint Declaration are not enforceable in courts, although they look like promises, but as a matter of common law, they are not enforceable in the courts. This legal policy was reaffirmed in the case of Tang Ping Hoi back in 1987. However, the 12 basic policies says that all basic policies will be written into a Hong Kong basic law. That is, the 12 basic policy, the number 12 basic policy in the Joint Declaration, right, is about enactment of a basic law. 4th point is the preamble says its purpose is to implement basic law stated in the Joint Declaration. And how far, the question here is, how far does the Hong Kong Basic Law succeed in doing this? The question is for Chapter 2, and when you go through the exercise, i.e. matching the basic law with the local law, with local law, or with an ordinance, and also the basic law for that matter, right? So what I would like you to do is go back, look at chapter 2, the questions, and the question asks you to identify from the Hong Kong basic law certain articles, which is in relation to, which is relevant to a particular field of areas covered in the joint declaration, right? So, for example, just very quickly, in fact, question 1 was done for you. It says, identify at least one article or part of the preamble in the Hong Kong Basic Law that reflects the above basic policy and write the article number in the space below. The above basic policy here is the upholding national unity and territorial integrity, take account of history of Hong Kong and its reality. That, of course, was reflected in the Basic Law preamble, some of which, a part of which I read to you, right? So this is where you can go back and do some exercise yourself and come back and let's share that, okay? Joint declaration. Now, why is this question being asked? Well, as a matter of international law, of course, joint declaration is an agreement entered into between two nations. Is international, and it contains promises made by respective governments to each other. One may ask, if one of the parties has breached the promises, gone back on the words, what can be done? Well, the joint declaration is so thin that it doesn't actually contain an enforcement mechanism. There's no complaint procedure, there's no adjudication procedure. And in fact, it will almost provide an argument, a basis for arguing that this is but just a joint declaration, is not even an agreement which is enforceable. And you have heard the Chinese government, central government, been saying that in the context of the universal suffrage or the democratic evolution in Hong Kong, the central government has said more than once that when or what kind of universal suffrage and when will there be such election system is something the Basic Law has already promised, and not the joint declaration. The joint declaration is not part of this. The joint declaration is already out the window, right? So this is the Chinese official stance, and that itself therefore makes the joint declaration less and less important than before. However, within the common law system, a legal document such as the joint declaration will not be ruled out as something that the court cannot consider. Under common law, anything, basically general principles, anything relevant could be placed before the court, and then for the court to decide whether it has what legal effect, if any, that this legal document should have. But with the central authority's stance taken that, well, the joint declaration doesn't have a position, doesn't have a place at all, we should look at it maybe from a common law legal system point of view. I think our conclusion will be different, and there's no really hard and fast rule. There's no real prohibition though at the same time. So we can look at the Joint Declaration from various perspectives. First is this historical one. It's something that had happened, and it was, in fact, as I put it, the way I put it is the historical origin of Hong Kong Basic Law. So the birth of Hong Kong Basic Law actually owe a lot to the Joint Declaration. The two governments, if they had not been able to enter into such a Joint Declaration, there will be no Basic Law, because it's among their promises. In fact, the promise that the Chinese government entered into was to promulgate the basic policy in a joint declaration, in a basic law, which she has done. And you will see much of the content of the Hong Kong Basic Law was actually copied from the Joint Declaration. However, from a strict legal point of view, the Chinese government, the PRC government, is not wrong. It's right, because the Joint Declaration is not the legal origin of the Basic Law, right? And whatever right that Hong Kong, the only body that has the power to give it legality is the National People's Congress, the National People's Congress. By the way, when we talk about legal system and political system, it's something that we must go back to the constitution of that particular place or country in order to answer those questions. And in the case of the Hong Kong Basic Law, we had already looked at Article 31 of the Constitution. It is that particular provision, which Article 31, which empowers empowers the NPC to make basic law, to promulgate a basic law, right? To promulgate a basic law, which out of necessity, which can establish a separate system that does not practice the socialist law legal system being practiced on the mainland. So China's position is Joint Declaration no longer relevant because it's already being implemented through Hong Kong Basic Law. When we look at the court judgments, and you will see even in 1999, in Garling's case, where the Hong Kong courts made clear that they still use the Joint Declaration to help interpret Hong Kong Basic Law. Right. So this is the relationship between the Joint Declaration and the Basic Law. Now, as far as the courts are concerned, it can use anything which is relevant and which enjoys a status so high that the court finds it comfortable to consider the views expressed. Otherwise, it will only be opinion, right? And in the courts, like in Garling, is an example where Joint Declaration was used to help interpret Hong Kong Basic Law. And this is Garling's purposive stroke contextual approach in interpreting statute. So Joint Declaration 1984, when they were signed, if there was certain provision in the statutes which requires the court to interpret, the court might look at the Joint Declaration to determine or to help it interpret certain Hong Kong Ordinance. Okay, so we dealt with the joint declaration, and we dealt with the importance or otherwise of the joint declaration today. Basic law. Now, in the joint declaration, and that is I think in point number 12, it says that the basic policy of PRC regarding Hong Kong um, uh, 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 will be stipulated in a basic law of Hong Kong SAR by National People's Congress, and they will remain unchanged for 50 years. And they will remain unchanged for 50 years. So that's that is what was undertaken in the joint declaration with UK government, and so to take on this drafting function, it is the natural event to that happens following the signing of the joint declaration, because it's China honoring its promise, and in order to do that, again, something unprecedented, something that had not happened before in China, in mainland China, which was to establish a basic law drafting committee as a committee under the National People's Congress. 59 members there are, and 36 from mainland, 23 from Hong Kong. And they from different background, a wide variety of members. And before 1990, they had produced two drafts. The first stage, we say, is 85 to 89, and we saw the picture of two well-known politicians. One is Martin Lee, the other is Maria Tam. And but Martin Lee did not finish his work, and because he and Sitowa resigned after the June 4th. Martin Lee and Sitowa resigned from it. Maria Tam stayed on, and she is, of course, now the vice or deputy chair of the Hong Kong Basic Law Drafting Committee. China at that time expressed the willingness to make significant changes in response to pressure from Hong Kong. Right, so there were some one or two textbook type books that actually contain an analysis of the basic law historically by looking and identifying the changes of articles from day 1, 1985, till when it was promulgated in 1990, April 1990. The first draft, available April 1988, it was widely seen as reflecting one country, not enough for the two systems. And Article 22 required laws against subversion, a crime which does not exist in Hong Kong. Now you will see eventually this Article 22 became Article 23. And there was wide consultation, and a large number of submissions were received, and also the consultative committee was soon established, and there were many people, about 180 public consultative members, and overall the person responsible collected 74,000 submissions from Hong Kong. Let's look at this historical change to this. Article 22 later on became Article 23. In the first draft, it says Hong Kong SAR shall prohibit by law any act designed to undermine national security and unity or subvert the Central People's Government. Only dealing with the very sensitive political issues, isn't it? Any views on this? Article 22, which later became Article 23, and this was 1988. More than 100 changes from the first draft, and mostly concessions to Hong Kong. What concessions? For example, with the crime of subversion deleted. The crime of subversion was deleted from Article 23 and replaced by crimes which are mostly covered by existing law. And there were supposed to be more emphasis put on two systems in the second draft of the Basic Law, and there was significant improvement on the first draft. So first draft maybe a little bit like in detail, but according to this comment, significant improvement was made to the first draft. In Hong Kong, in those days, it generated a lot of public discussion, both on the, I was going to say on the street. I mean, in less formal settings. In less formal settings. In 1989 February, we saw the second draft, and the important words treason, secession, and sedition were acted, obviously deliberately, and this is much shorter than what we have today, but the key crimes, especially secession, which was something unknown to Hong Kong written law, Hong Kong ordinances, got enacted there. And just a matter of history, when we look back, it's drafted in very broad terms, quite different from the national security legislation both in mainland China and in other countries. Again, on the drafting, in a way historical, but I have to, but the knowledge of this background is important, because I think you will see that the Basic Law, the language used generally is easy to understand, but when it comes to some people may even find this surprising that PRC was prepared to give so much room for maneuver to a special administrative region, especially against the background that China, PRC, is a unified state. To say that it means whoever is in power is not keen to share its powers with sort of second tier or local authorities like the province or other autonomous regions within China. But in relation to Hong Kong, you may be able to say and observe that Hong Kong had, Central People's Government had given Hong Kong a lot of space. And even with the provision like Article 23, which is on national security, PRC was prepared to allow a special administrative region to make such a law, right? And the laws are on just like treason, secession, sedition, or theft of state secrets. So by April 1990, the final draft was ready. There were some concessions, compromises to part of the second draft. And for example, the crime of subversion was put back despite protests from Hong Kong. One of the complaint was subversion is something unknown to the Basic Law, and also the other argument is this is not a crime that was explicitly referred to in the agreed documents between the agreed documents. It was never agreed in those terms. But this subject was particularly sensitive in 1989 after the June 4th event. But come 1990, the authorities obviously considered it necessary to put back crime of subversion into Article 23. And eventually the government to provide definition. So with the effect of making it more precise and also limiting to the situations, to whatever the situation that would allow or would give the Hong Kong people more room for maneuver. So final draft 1990, and April was the month when the National People's Congress met. National People's Congress, they meet only once a year, and when they meet, usually over a period of 7 to 9 days. So they really have to time their work very carefully, otherwise you would sort of be delayed. Once you miss the last day of a term, miss the national meeting on the last day, then you will have to wait a long time. You may have to wait for a long time until the next session resumes, which is another year. Right? So National People's Congress set April 4th, 1990, and passed the final draft. Of course, for it to commence operation over 7 years down the road, July 1st, 1997. Again, back to Article 23, and you see in bold type the word subversion was inserted again, reinserted. When we are on Article 23, I just mentioned it briefly, which is the law of PRC on safeguarding national security in Hong Kong SAR. So without Article 23, central authorities made a decision in May this year and directed the directed the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress to make that law and for it to be promulgated and take effect in Hong Kong as well. We'll go to that in more detail later on. So the drafting history is still important because when a case goes to court, we every so often we will have to take out the historical aspects of the basic law, anything reported, anything said officially about a certain draft, why a certain drafting was adopted in the manner that it was seen. And so this is again back to what I said. Drafting history is important, especially in light of the principle that the Court of Final Appeal had decided that it should decided applicable, and this is what the interpretation approach is what we call the so-called purposive approach or contextual approach. And because of this, it means unless the words used are very, very clear, then you don't even need to interpret. When you see the words or expression, you will know what it means. But sometimes if it isn't that obvious, isn't that clear, then for a statute, for a law such as the Basic Law, the drafting record will be important for ascertaining the original intention. It sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work. And for the Basic Law, it's not easy because there is yet a complete set of official drafting record available to the public. So as far as interpreting the Basic Law is concerned, for the purpose of interpreting the Basic Law, the drafting records are still important. This is the law of PRC on safeguarding national security in Hong Kong SAR. It was endorsed by Standing Committee on June 30th, 2020, and effective on that very day, 11 p.m. I put a question here again for you to consider later on, not right now, because we are yet to get there. And the question is whether this national security law bring any change to the relationship between the central authorities and the Hong Kong SAR. Right, I think we're coming to the end. Yes, we just got to the end of chapter 2 as far as the slides are concerned. I think again, I would like to ask you if you have any questions on this. It looks pretty straightforward, but an important part of our study of the Basic Law. Are there any questions? All right. Let me ask you one question then. And the question, I'll type it out. The question is, what was the first question that came to your mind when you knew that you have to study the Hong Kong Basic Law for the purpose of this certificate program? What was it? What was the first thing that came to your mind? Or first question, is it? Or first thing that came to your mind? What I'll do is this. I'll break you up into a few into groups. We've got 61 of here. Let me break you up into 10 groups, and then we'll give you 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. Okay. Yeah, 4 groups. That's all I can break up. um, Hello. Am I with Breakout Group 4? Can you hear me? Right. We are back into the main class. I didn't realize that you were not able to conduct a discussion orally. Was that the experience of all the groups that you weren't able to discuss orally? Could anybody? Let me. Right. 梁錦孫 Can I ask you to elaborate on your question because it's interesting. I'll turn on your microphone. 梁錦孫 Right. Oh, you just unplug it. Could you put it back on? Because I would like to. I'm interested to hear what your question is. I mean, to hear you elaborate. All right, just curious. This is what I wanted to actually wanted to the message that I wanted to impart. I wanted to pass to you is hopefully with some basic knowledge of what the basic law is in today's Hong Kong, it would help you understand some public debates, help you to understand maybe the basis of certain views taken by various people when debating this, right? And for example, when you now with the especially now with the national security law put in place in Hong Kong, why and how was how conduct that incite others to seek independence of Hong Kong would be a crime, or before this national security law, it would be said that it was said that it would be a contravention of the basic law. Now, that was something, of course, very controversial and had attracted a lot of public discussion and debate. But as a student of the basic law, I hope you will be able to make your own judgment in the context of the law or of the applicable law. That is one thing that I hope we will be able to achieve. So when you say to learn the legal basis of some some heated topics, that yes, I think that is obviously one of the aims that we have for at least for me to in conducting this course or in teaching this course. And there's so many things, so many of these debates. For example, for last year, I'm talking about 2019. If you remember, the government had invoked the Emergency Regulations Ordinance and made what we generally call anti-mask laws in Hong Kong, and that was in October last year. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Yeah. Yes. Now, the ordinance that the government invoked was called Emergency Regulations Ordinance, and there was a view taken by some that this ordinance did not survive the 1997, did not continue to be part of Hong Kong law because of the Basic Law, did not become part of Hong Kong law because it was repealed in 1991, or it was in contravention of the Basic Law because under this ordinance, the Chief Executive had been given a general lawmaking power, which contravened the Basic Law because the Basic Law only allowed one lawmaking body, and that is the Legislative Council. Now, whether that argument is valid or not requires understanding of the Basic Law, and of course that debate eventually ended up in court. The case went to court, and at the moment it is before the Court of Final Appeal, waiting to be is now. Well, in fact, it had gone before the Court of Final Appeal, and it was last month. It went to the Court of Final Appeal, and the Court of Final Appeal will be handing down its judgment very soon, and hopefully before the end of this year. So within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think we'll be able to see the court deciding whether the Emergency Regulation Ordinance was in contravention of the Basic Law or not. So this is the sort of example that of sort of topical, heated topics, I think, heated topics. And ironically, of course, when the law promulgated was to prohibit people from wearing masks in public places, and now everybody is wearing masks, wearing facial mask in public places for health reasons. And of course, for health reasons, if you wear a face mask for health reasons, under the anti-mask law, it is not unlawful. It is a reasonable excuse. Right? So Basic Law is therefore important there. And of course, some years back, we discussed about Hong Kong community discussed about the electoral scheme for both the Chief Executive and Legislative Council. Now, all that involve again discussion of the Basic Law, the meaning of the provisions of the Basic Law, Article 45, Article 68. What does it mean by universal suffrage, and so on. That again is something that we'll be looking at in our studies of the various chapters in the menu. Okay. Any questions? Sorry. What I wanted to do now is to actually ask representatives of each of the groups to tell us very, very briefly of what you had discussed. Can I have anybody from group 1? Oh, that's a pity. We were expecting that you would have an environment which is conducive to discussions. I mean, try next time maybe, right? Because as I had said at the beginning, our course is actually designed for face-to-face teaching, and we are expecting interaction among students and also between students and teachers as a way to learn, right? Otherwise, that defeats the purpose of coming to a lesson. Okay, so we have, but don't worry, we will have to adapt. Everyone will have to adapt. Right? So I'm not saying I'll do slowly. All right. The short answer is no. You don't have to memorize this, but you have to know them. You don't have to memorize them, but you have to know them. And you are now not at a you are at a certificate level. You are expected to have a good knowledge of the relevant articles and annexes and interpretations. When we come to revision, I will highlight the more important articles that you should at least learn to have a better understanding than some others. Can I ask if, because I didn't have a record of who's in which breakout group because this was done random. Maybe I can ask randomly then for your, what about what you had discussed in your breakout group. Right. Can I ask if whole line lamb, whole line lamb, whole line lamb? Do I have whole line lamb there? Hello. Do I have whole line lamb? No. Do I have yip wing lamb? Do I have yip wing lamb there? No. I probably will have to take a roll call next time then. It seems that people have logged on but are actually not there. Do I have Li Yun Cheng? Li Yun Cheng? Do I have Patrick Wong? Do I have Patrick Wong there? Patrick?
Yes, yes,
Oh, did you hear my calling other names? Did you hear the names that I called just now?
yes, yes,
I'm afraid I
yes.
have no response from any of those. That you are the first one who responded. Thank you so much. Um, uh, I don't want to second guess why I didn't get a response at all. But back to the question I asked, could you share with us what you discussed during the breakout session?
Um, because the background sound is high echoing. So it's hard for us to discuss uh the issue.
I see. So that's something that I didn't realize. But what about I have to check with with the office to advise us how we're able to conduct these breakout sessions more efficiently. Yeah, I saw Pak Sing say not familiar with the functions and so on. Yeah. Um, yeah, and of course, Patrick, I can hear some background noise from your end too. Yes, this is something we have to. I have to seek advice as to what we should do. Okay, thank you so much, Patrick. But can you instead of sharing us with us your discussion, tell us what you thought your response to my question was.
Mm, I think learning basic law is learning the Hong Kong Constitution law. Yeah.
It's Hong Kong's constitution.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I think Ng Pak Shing typed out something along those lines, and I think Patrick, your remark similar to Ng Pak Shing's. I think identify the importance and of the basic law because of its status in our legal system. And Ng Pak Shing put it as essential for us because it's constitution of Hong Kong. You will find that aspect of legal theory and and strict jurisprudence, the use of the word constitution may be considered as not appropriate because Hong Kong is not a sovereign state. It is but a part of People's Republic of China, so it cannot on its own has a constitution. The only constitution that Hong Kong SAR can have and applicable is the Constitution of the People's Republic of China. So some people, including some judges in Hong Kong, described the basic law as the mini constitution. The mini constitution. And for some purists, some who are very strict about constitutional matters, also consider it not appropriate. Still not appropriate. Mini constitution still means constitution. So, in response to that, I think a more neutral term could be used, describing the basic law as a constitutional document, a constitutional document for Hong Kong, 憲制性法律文件. or constitutional instrument of Hong Kong. We will deal with that later on, and if you are talking about article numbers, the article number that is relevant will be Article 11, Article 11 of the Basic Law, Article 11 of the Basic Law, and also Article 31 of the People's Republic, of the Constitution of the People's Republic of China. So that's good. Yes, Ho Lai Lam, you were so frustrated to study the Basic Law under current status. You mean you felt so frustrated? Maybe if I could ask you to elaborate. Ho, could I ask you to elaborate a little bit? Yeah, let me turn your microphone on. Could you tell us why you thought, why you felt frustrated under the current status? Can you hear me? Ho Lai Lam? Is it Mr. Ho or Miss Ho? Oh, you have a microphone. So could you maybe share with us by texting just the type of what you wanted to say? Well, now, of course, I can't say you don't have to to worry about that, because I don't know what actually on your mind. Because if you look at the national security law more closely, in addition to the offences, which I could really, it would be very, very remote for any of these discussions that we are engaged in would constitute any infringement or violation of that law. On the contrary, if you look at the national security law more closely, it actually provides that we should adopt measures and policies and so on to study the national system, and that obviously includes the basic law and the relevant laws. So let's look at that in more detail, and I'll share with you more about what is in the national security law. And I saw a question earlier about which asked for my email, for my WhatsApp, and for my WeChat. I'm afraid it is our school policy that we don't at this stage provide these for you. If you wanted to reach me, I think and indeed the registry it will be most happy to relate your messages to me, right? So that I think I'm afraid it's my answer to your question, Jen Honman. All right. For Thursday, we will move on to looking at chapter 3. And please, as I had said, I would like you to go to chapter 2 of the manual and go through the questions and therefore answer those questions on pages 13 to 18. Pages 13 to 18. So are there any other questions before I close the class, close the session today? Thank you, Gwen. Past paper solutions, don't worry, we will provide students with a revision manual and that will contain matters that you probably are looking for. I think the recording should be available at Seoul. Article 23 is still effective, of course, but no laws have been made by Hong Kong SAR under Article 23 of the Basic Law. The assignment question will be issued to you. It's already there, but it's just a matter of the registry uploading that to Salt for you. Right. It seemed that. Oh, okay, Jiang Hongman, maybe you still got you have another question. Good. So let's call it a day, and thank you for being so attentive. I just wonder, and I hope everybody been at the lesson. I have got 55, some probably left, but please check your microphone and come with a microphone that works so that we can communicate better. All right. Good night, everybody. Good night.